Okay, so the curve, what you need to think about is a circle that's much, much bigger than obviously what's actually going to fit on the page. So I'm going to imagine that I'm way zoomed out and I can see the whole curve, or I'm sorry, rather the whole circle happening. So I'm going to draw something really big. So again, I'm always starting with that idea of a box. Then, the next, when we think about that image that you just showed me, what that circle has, if we think about like the demonstrations I've done for you guys of drawing an O, it has some dimension to it, not just on the side, but also on the front. There's a width to it. So this is maybe overly technical for what you really need to know, but maybe not. So just to draw kind of some X's to basically give me a guideline on how large this is going to be all the way around. I want to make this a circle, and so I think it's always helpful to draw the those guidelines for an ellipse. And I also want to give it a thickness, so maybe it's going to be this thick. I already know how thick it's going to be on this side. The other thing I wanted to say is that there is a way, an exact way to find out how thick this thickness would be on this side. We know it's going to be smaller, right? Like we can kind of imagine or guess that it's going to be smaller, but there is like a technical way to figure this out. In that same way, that the hashtag or the grid that you showed me, there's also a way to make sure each grid becomes mathematically proportionally smaller as it goes back in space, but it's complicated. So I'm going to try to talk about it, that we know that it needs to get smaller in space without doing all the extra technical stuff to get there, because I think it will overwhelm you guys. So I'm just tracing out sort of the shape that I would imagine that O being. I'm not going to overdraw this side because I don't need it for this picture. I can keep doing the demo if somebody says, "Oh, I wish you would finish that," but I'm mostly trying to get this one kind of sliver of the curve. So then I know it's this deep, right? And I could kind of connect the same way I did on the front side. I could connect these angles on the back side, the back plane of the box, just to help me sort of project a uniform size circle back in space. So if I take this point and I go back toward the vanishing point, that's on that diagonal, that's exactly where this curve would be happening. If I look at this point, I know that I need to hit that back diagonal, in that same, whatever the angle is right here, that's sort of the same angle that's going to be happening here. And remember, I also showed you guys that trick where you line up with the vanishing point and come down, and that's going to show you the last moment that you should be hitting the curve. Same thing here. That's going to show you the last moment that you would hit the curve. So I've got a couple, now I've got these different points. I know the last point, the point where this side terminates. I know the angle I need to hit right here, and I obviously know I have to hit out here too. So between all those, hopefully that gives me, the right guidance to make an accurate, accurate for the shape I just drew, accurate two sides of the curve. Now you might be looking at that saying, well, that's a really hard curve. What I saw on the example that was just shown was a much taller, longer curve. Okay, fine. So make your box a lot taller and you'll have a curve that doesn't curve so much. If you just wanted a slice of that, if this is all that you wanted to fit in the piece, that's fine. Or this. So imagine, your piece of paper is this big. You would need an O that was so much taller than the paper that it disappeared, up just right off the page up here. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I showed you how to draw it, but I'm also showing you sort of the proportions that, imagine how large that, I would need a really big piece of paper to make an O that was that large that it was going to go off the page. Is that helpful?
Yeah, thank you.
So in terms of, so part of it is how do I draw a rounded thing? The other part of it is how do I actually do that on a piece of paper, right? So if your paper, if his whole, like 20-foot painting that he's doing is this, this big, he needs a lot more space than that to actually visualize that circle in it. The circle would have been like that big, right? For just that much of it to come on and go off of the paper. You know what I mean? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, if this was a sheet of newsprint, or rather, let's say if this was a sheet of printer paper, I would probably want to be using a sheet of newsprint with my vanishing points marked off to do this drawing. So you may need a lot more paper than what is actually going to be the outcome of this piece. So do you see how that would give me an O like that shape?
Yeah.
And that's what will cut through the page?